Hi everyone. Today video is on hot chocolate GraphQL implementation in pure code first approach. Okay. Coming to GraphQL, GraphQL is like a similar to REST endpoint, but it is a query type endpoint. Okay. In GraphQL, we will have only single endpoint. Okay. So based on query, the data response will be differ in the GraphQL. Okay. The most preferred HTTP verb is post in the GraphQL. Okay, so GraphQL is basically depends upon SDL, like schema definition language. So if you want to see the schema definition language sample, see like this it will be there. Okay, it is a GraphQL schema language. As a .NET developer using Hot Chocolate library, we no need to know about the GraphQL SDL, but it is good to have a knowledge on the schema of the GraphQL. So I will show here small brief view of how the schema of GraphQL look like. Or else when we use Hot Chocolate library also internally on runtime, this type of schema only automatically generated by the library, Hot Chocolate library. Okay. So coming to the schema, if you observe here, here it looks like a almost like a JSON object, but it is not. It is quite different. Okay. So if you observe here, the person is a one type of GraphQL STL. Okay. So if we compare this object with our object oriented, type keyword is equivalent to the class. Okay. So person is nothing but like a class name. In GraphQL it is like a type name. Okay. Similar to the class, in GraphQL type also will have properties, and GraphQL also has its own type. See, this is not any C# type. This is GraphQL schema scalar types like int and integer. So this is one object in GraphQL. If you compare this with object-oriented programming, it is like a class. Okay, and next query. So GraphQL generally uh, depends on two operations like query and mutation. Query contains all the methods or the logics to fetching the data. Mutations contains all the logic or methods to save or update the data to the save. So in that operations here, the query operation type looks like this. Okay, so this keyword represent this type is query type. And if you observe, this is uh, here you can observe it is like a property like here this person is a one resolver or a method, and its return type is person. This person is nothing but the GraphQL type that we have defined here. Okay, so the GraphQL query type looks like this. Okay, so in this query type we will have all different types of operations like fetching. All the methods will be written in this query type. Okay, see now here it is mutation type. Okay, in mutation type here also create is a resolver or a method, but mutations are used for saving the data, right? So here you can observe the input parameter for the create resolver. Okay, so person is the input parameter name, and person input is the uh, type of the payload object type. Okay, and finally it returns the person type, this person type. Okay, and finally the main root object in the schema is GraphQL is schema type. Under schema, uh, it will have query and the mutations. If you observe, here query and mutations are registered with the types that are defined above. Okay, so this is a small overview on the GraphQL HDL language. So how this schema will be used in the GraphQL, but as a .NET developer, it looks like more different, right? It's not our familiar language. So we, with the hot chocolate library, we no need to learn this the HDL library. Okay. So to learn to in the learning process, hot chocolate library makes us path very easy. That with the C# code only we can write GraphQL logic, and on runtime automatically based on those logics, GraphQL server that are we are going to integrate will automatically generate schema and executes its normal process. Okay, so this is how GraphQL HDL looks like. Okay, so now coming to GraphQL hot chocolate library. Okay, it is a open source library that's built on top of GraphQL.NET library. This hot chocolate library makes our learning process very easy. Okay, because it provides three types of methods of writing the GraphQL code in .NET. Okay, so for first approach, it provides is schema approach. Schema approach is nothing but we need to write like this only in .NET in strings, uh, in double quotes, in string or double quotes. We need to define everything, this type of schema, and we need to write our logic in schema first approach. But that is difficult, and which is not so interest for a .NET developer. And it also provides two more options, Hot Chocolate Library. So those are for .NET developers to start on writing the GraphQL endpoint. So remaining two options are like code first approach. What is code first approach? Code first approach is like if we write a C# class, it should have a mapping GraphQL C# class. Okay, so GraphQL C# class nothing but it contains hot chocolate library GraphQL types. Okay, so plain C# class should be mapped with this GraphQL C# class. Okay, nothing but we need to have two classes. One is plain class and another one is mapping GraphQL C# class in code first approach. So in this approach, we need to learn some terminology about the GraphQL types that are built in C# by the Hot Chocolate library. Okay, so it is little bit hard to start, but once you understand, it is very easy. So regarding this code first approach, I have already created videos on it, like a overview video on code first approach in GraphQL. You can check my playlist. You can watch over there. In code first approach, I have also explained about authorization and also JWT token as well. If you want, check them in my YouTube playlist, or you can also check in my blog as well. Okay. Next, coming to last technique. That technique is we are going to implement in this demo. That is pure code first approach. This is very simple because here we no need to do any schema writings. Here we no need to do any mapping GraphQL classes because in this approach only simple plain C# class is enough. Remaining everything schema generation for the runtime will be automatically generated by the GraphQL server. Okay, so it is very easy, like a pure code first approach. So we are going to implement a small sample on writing entire code in pure code first approach for setting up the GraphQL endpoint. Okay, so we are going to do a demo now. So before going to demo, I think you understand this is my blog. So whatever the concepts that I am going to explain in this video has been already furnished it into this blog. So if you want to go through the blog, link will be available under the description. in the description under the video. So anyone interested, you can check the blog as well. Okay, so let's begin our demo. Okay, so here I am using .NET CLI to create .NET 5 Web API application. Okay, so if you are a Visual Studio developer, please make sure to have a version of Visual Studio 2019 version of 16.8 point something, because that latest version only .NET 5 is compatible to build, or else you cannot do it in Visual Studio. You should have .NET CLI. Okay, here I am using .NET CLI. So why I am preferring is Web API. It is very easy to set up in .NET Web API. And here we will also take one advantage. We can have an application with one GraphQL endpoints and remaining REST endpoints. Okay, you can develop with the both combination as well if you like. If you don't want to write REST endpoints, that's up to you. You can only use for a GraphQL endpoint only. Okay, so let's start creating the project. .NET new, template name Web API, and my project name. Okay, you can see the target frame here, framework here, .NET 5.0. Okay, now I need to install Hot Chocolate library now into our Web API project. So I need to search like Hot Chocolate GraphQL ASP.NET Core NuGet. You can see couple of other NuGets with Hot Chocolates. If you are doing with .NET Core 3.1 or .NET 5 or .NET Core 2.1 also, please make sure to have hot chocolate.asp.NET Core. Don't use hot chocolate. Some other libraries will be available. Those are like root libraries. Okay, so to use them, there will be different techniques, but those are hard. It is very easy because it is mainly targeted for ASP.NET Core application integration. So I'm going to install this .NET Core Hot Chocolate library. So Visual Studio users copy the command from package manager. I'm going to copy from .NET CLI. So let's install the library. So library seems installed successfully. You can check it in this C project file, CS project file. Okay, library has been successfully installed. Now, first step is we need to integrate, set up the GraphQL server and also routing for the GraphQL endpoint. For that, let's go to startup file. Okay, here integration is very easy, like services dot add GraphQL server. You need to add this extension method to set up the GraphQL server. Okay, and next thing is configuring the routing. This library is very flexible, so it is very easily integrated into the .NET Core endpoint routing. So you can access like endpoints dot map GraphQL. GraphQL by default, if you hover here, you can observe default path / GraphQL. Okay, so I'm going to use the default one only. If you want to override, you can pass it in the this braces. You can pass your own custom path for the GraphQL endpoint. So here I will use default one. So that is the basic step. What we have did here, like configuring service and the routing. Okay. So now what I will do to play with some real-time data from the database. Here I am going to integrate the database context using the entity framework core. So I have already have a one class table like gadgets in my local system. So I'm going to use that table for this demo. So using NT framework, I am going to implement is code first approach with existing database. I think everyone knows about how database and database context and NT framework will work. So here what I will do, I have already saved some code snippet for integrating NT framework with code first approach. So we can make we can save some time because I don't want to go in depth in that area because it will like deviating from our original topic GraphQL. Okay. So first step is I need to install NT Framework Core NuGet package and also NT Framework SQL extension NuGet as well because my database is SQL database. Okay, first install NT Framework. NT Framework Core NuGet. Okay. So I am going to copy the CLI command. Let's try to install it. I think it's installed. Let's check over here. Yes, NT Framework. Now we have installed. Another is uh, NT Framework Core SQL Server NuGet. Okay, so let's install this package as well. I think SQL library also installed. We can check over here. Okay, we have installed two NT Framework required libraries. Okay, first thing is I will create a entity that represent my table. Okay, let me create folder like data. Okay, inside of it one more folder like entities. Okay, so I have already have snippets, so I will use same as it is. So I will create a class like gadgets. Okay, so here I have copied my gadgets entity, and if you want to follow like me, you can copy this same snippet also available in my blog, so you can copy paste from there. Okay, now entity is created. Now I want to create a database context. So I'm going to create one file in data folder. So my database context name is my old DB context. So let me add it here. So let's copy the DB context class in this file. Okay, let's import some core namespaces. Okay, import gadget. Okay, we have successfully created our database context also. Next thing is I want to configure a connection string to my database. So what I will do, I have a connection string object, JSON object. So in app setting file, after the logging object, I will paste it here. Okay. And the final step remaining is I need to register my database context in the startup. So for that, I have already created. So let me copy that into the startup. Okay, let's go to startup. Paste here. Import namespaces. Okay, and save. I think mostly we are done integrating the database context into the our sample application. Okay, now let's come back to our GraphQL topic. Okay, so I have already mentioned, right? Uh, GraphQL main operations are query and the mutation. Query contains all the resolvers. Resolvers are nothing but the methods for fetching the data. Similarly, mutation contains resolvers or methods, nothing but to update or just save the data. Mutations are nothing but they will change the state of our application. Okay. So first, let's begin by creating a query class and then implementing a some simple resolver method and try to fetch the data from the GraphQL endpoint by invoking that resolver method. Okay. So for that, what I will do, I will create new folder like resolvers. Okay. So inside of it, let's create a CS class like query resolver.cs. Okay. So let's implement it. Okay. And what I will do, I will create a one simple resolver method like this, like public. I'm going to return a gadgets object. I have created just now, right? Table object, that one. So I will name it like first gadget. So I want to fetch the first gadget now. So to fetch the first gadget, I did DB context. Okay. So uh, inside resolver methods, okay, to use the database context, there are some attributes provided by the hot chocolate libraries. So what they will do means they will inject very easily those objects or services into the any resolver of the application. Okay. So we are going to use those attributes now to inject the database context. And one more thing I want to mention is that if you want to compare with REST API, this GraphQL resolver is like a one action method. Okay, so if you can consider this query resolver like a controller, and the first first gadget is like a action method. If you want to compare with the REST API, okay, for better understanding. Okay, now let's import that attribute to inject the database context into my first gadget resolver. So to do that, here I can open these square brackets and say like service and try to import the namespace. See here, it is from the hot chocolate. Okay, import the namespace, and here I can specify my old DB context. Okay, so import the namespace and the context. Okay, so whenever the client requests this resolver, the framework automatically injects this my old DB context. Now what I will do, simply also import the gadgets namespace. Now simply what I will do, return context gadgets first, first default. Let's import the link namespace. So that's it. Our first logic for our resolver. Okay. So now users can consume this resolver from the GraphQL endpoint. Okay. And one last thing we need to do is we need to register our query resolver class. So this query resolver class, I can call it like a query type. Okay. So to make this query resolver class as a GraphQL query type, we need to register it in the startup server under the GraphQL server. For that, let's go to startup class. So to make that class as a query type, Here we will have one method like add query type. Here you can pass that class type. Okay, and import the namespace. So that's it. We have created query type in our GraphQL endpoint. So what runtime will do? Runtime, what it will do means, for suppose how it will be, let's understand. Our schema will looks like. Okay, let me create one more time. Since query resolver we have registered in query type, right? So runtime it will generate like by default uh, in GraphQL schema HDL language, it will have only one query and one mutation type only. Okay, you cannot have multiple one. Okay, so it will generate query like this. And what is our resolver name? First gadget. Okay, here you need to observe one thing. So here the schema is auto generated, so it has some conventions. Okay, so what is that convention means? It will generate method name in Pascal casing. First should be in small f. For suppose this is how code pure code first will work. For suppose if you use code first approach, see, don't confuse, I am telling about code first. Okay, which is I have already created videos on it. Okay, this is pure code first. Okay, I want to compare this with code first. So now in code first, this class will have a mapper class. So in there we can define the name for this resolver, how to generate in the schema. But here now that option is available for only in code first, because there every class will have a mapping class. So in the mapping class we can define the names for the schema, how it should generate. But here we don't have that option. Here framework will auto generate the schema. So in this case the convention is like Pascal case. Okay, and colon its return type. What its return type? Gadgets. Okay, so it also defines a type like normal complex type like type gadgets. It will define gadgets only with capital only. So it will do like this. Okay, so this is how query look like. And one more thing, this gadgets is nothing but our gadgets class, plain C# class, this class. So this type name will be capital case only, but its properties again will be generated as Pascal case. Like this, it will generate product name, brand, cost, and type. Okay, so this is the schema that is automatically generated from the code till now what we have written. Okay, okay, so that is this schema generation showing only because to understand. Okay, so because this is the core language for GraphQL, right? If you know this concept, it will be more benefit to us in learning the GraphQL. Okay, if you don't know also, that doesn't matter, because Hot Chocolate library gives that much easiness to learn the GraphQL. Okay, so now let's try to consume this resolver from the GraphQL endpoint. So let's run the application. So I have mentioned, right, what is the default path slash GraphQL for GraphQL endpoint. See, from this you can understand. If you go here, previous page, this is normal .NET API route, Swagger route. Okay, if you define anything, see here, it is nothing but default API when I create a web API. So this is REST API. And now if you navigate to GraphQL, this is GraphQL endpoint. From this we can conclude that we can maintain two in our code base. Two means one is we can maintain REST APIs as well as GraphQL endpoint. Okay, and this is you are seeing some tool, right? This is automatically generated by the hot chocolate. Its name is Banana Cake Pop. It is very easy and must required UI for testing our endpoints. Okay, so just ignore these tabs. These are previously worked tabs. So this is the benefit. It also stores the old, what I can say, old testing tabs as well. Okay, for our demo, I'm going to take new tab. Okay, let's hide this. So here, this is the like a playground tool to query our GraphQL endpoint. So to query my GraphQL endpoint, I can say like query this keyword to represent the type of operation. Okay, and open flower braces. Next thing is I need to invoke this resolver, right? So copy the name. I have mentioned, right? It will generate schema in Pascal case. So I need to use what's the name generated in the schema. So I have to say like this. Next thing is, okay. Next thing I can specify it is returning what object this method gadgets, right? So what is gadget type schema generated? This type. These are all the properties. So we need to call the properties here. Okay. So this is how we need to frame the query to a resolver in GraphQL. So we have completed in framing the query. Let's run this. So it's loading means the request went to server. See, I have got data. See, first gadget. What it will do means GraphQL. The query resolver name itself will be used in the used as a response object property inside of the data property. We will always have a data property as a root property. Inside of that, it will use our resolver method name to return the response object. Here single object, right? Here it is directly returning the single object. If we are requesting a resolver for multiple records, here it will be array. Like that, GraphQL manages to return the response. Okay. Now the beauty of the GraphQL is we can request only the required properties. So in the what it will do, server will only return those properties requested by the client. Those properties only send as a response to the client. So to check that magic, just remove these all columns. We are getting all properties, right? Now see the magic. See, now we are getting only two properties. See, because we are requesting only two properties. That is the magic. What is the benefit? We no need to if we no need to write any logic on the server side. Automatically, it is uh, returning the response based on the requested property. Okay. Because of this, our response size also very small in size. We can make small in size, and it also performance booster. We can consider it as when the JSON size is small, it gives performance as well. Okay. So this is how we need to request the GraphQL endpoint, and you can see the URL here as well. See, I have mentioned in first itself GraphQL only have single endpoint. See, this only we will have this endpoint only. Only changes we need to change the query based on our requirement. Okay. So next thing is I will create one more resolver method like that going to return multiple records. So let's go to our sample here. Let's write like gadgets. I will name my resolver method like all gadget. Okay, alt F. I can inject my DB context in this method as well. Okay, let me import LinkQ namespace, generic collections namespace, and here I can do return context dot gadgets dot toList. Okay, this is my second resolver method, and it will return collection of records. Okay, first let's think how the schema will generate. Okay, let me show here in this notepad. So this is one more resolver, right? So copy the name. So and here, and we know the rule. It is Pascal case, and it's written collection of gadgets, right? In GraphQL schema to represent collection, it is like a array when you compare with JavaScript. Okay, and here can specify gadgets. Sorry. So this is how schema will be generated on runtime based on our query class. Okay, and that's it. We can frame a query to consume this. So the required is resolver name. Just copy that resolver name, and it should be Pascal casing. So here, see, now I have got all the records from my database. Since I have requesting two properties only, right? I'm getting two properties only. Let me fetch brand as well. See, brand also coming now. Okay, this is how collection of records can be consumed from the GraphQL endpoint. And now I want to explain about one concept in GraphQL is like aliases. Aliases naming. What is these aliases names and where it is useful? Okay, so these aliases name where it will useful means if you observe here we have here it is our resolver method, right? Same resolver method will be used by the server to return the uh, response object. So if you want to change the name in the response object, means we more convenient way, okay, more understandable way. If you want to name it to your collection, then you can use aliases. How it is very simple, aliases. So it is a collection of gadgets, right? So what I will do, gadgets. That means plural. So I want this name as a name in response object as a property instead of the all gadgets. Simply like this, if you as it, this is nothing but this is gadgets is alias names for all gadgets. Now server will automatically pick this name and returns the response. See now, see response is changed now. Gadgets is my object name. So that's how aliases names are very useful to maintain some coding standards, like giving meaningful name also a coding standard, right? So it will be helpful in that cases. Okay, next. Till now we have simply fetching the result directly. There is no query parameters or nothing else there, right? Filtering on the table. We haven't did such implementation till now. Now we will do that. Now what I want to do is I want to query my database and return some filtered data. Okay. So for that, what I will do, I will create one another method, nothing but another resolver like public list of gadgets. Okay. Search by brand, my resolver name. Okay. I need to inject context into my resolver class, and now I want to specify the I can use query parameter terminology. Now input parameter of query parameter. So here I need to create a one query parameter like string brand. I want to search my database by brand naming. Okay. If at all string dot is null or empty. So in that case, I will simply return empty collection as a result. Okay. So if query parameter is not null, in that case, I want to filter the data. Dot brand dot to lower equal to brand query parameter brand dot to lower dot to list. Okay. So let's break down. Okay. So this is my resolver method that's going to fetch the data. Okay. First, let's understand how the schema will be generated. Let's copy the resolver name. So schema will generated like this. So small s. Since it has some input parameter or query parameter, right? So what is the variable name? Brand. It will generate with same name only. Brand. And its type string. Right? Now I need to specify the GraphQL string type like capital S. This is not C#. C# string is small s. You can check over there. And finally, what it is returning? Collection of gadgets. So collection of gadgets, nothing but like this. So like this schema will be generated. Okay. Now let's frame the, okay, save it for all. Good, good. Sorry. Okay. Now let's frame the query, GraphQL query to fetch the data from this resolver. For that, what I will do, I will copy this. Okay. I will paste it here. And that is small s. And now I need to pass some dynamic value. Okay. So to pass this dynamic value, we need to use one concept like, so to pass the dynamic value, we need to use one concept like variable. Okay. First, we need to have a variable. Okay. So this variable will be the dynamic content that's going to be passed into this query. You can see here variable area section for defining the variables in the banana cake pop. So to view, you can toggle here those tabs, some special tabs here. In the tabs, you can observe the GraphQL variables tab. Here, you can define any kind of name. It's up to you. I will create like my brand variable name. Okay. And so here I will define the user entered data. So I want to search for one plus brand gadgets in my database. Okay. This is the user value and this is the root variable name. Okay. Now in query to define the variable, okay, here on top, I need to specify like with the dollar and its name. Okay. This name with prefix with the dollar. Okay. Here I need to specify the type of this value holded by this variable. What is the value holded 1 plus, which is nothing but a string. Okay. What is the string in GraphQL? Capital S. Okay. We have successfully defined the variable and its type. Now I need to pass this variable to server here. So here is my resolver method, right? So my resolver method have a input or query. What is the variable name? Brand. Okay, copy that one, paste it here. Now to this brand we have to pass the variable that we have created. To pass that, just dollar my brand name is enough. Okay, that's it. We have created a query type with the some in variables, GraphQL variable. Okay, now these are the properties I am expecting in the collection of response. Okay, let's check here. See, I got data, right? Let me change to another brand search. Samsung. I will have a lot of data. See, it's filtered only Samsung. So in this way, it is very helpful. So filtering the data we have to do, we need to use the GraphQL variable. Okay. So it is hard to frame the query initially. Once you get used to creating it, it is very normal process only. Okay. So this is how filtering can be done. And here I want to explain one GraphQL, what I can say, query framing query technique, one framework technique like you can very easily uh, fetch the data for comparison between the two objects. See, if you go to any website or e-commerce website, there you can get a comparison object very easy, right? Side by side comparison. So in general REST API, we will have to uh, maybe call two REST APIs or in single API only with the based on parameters. Some server changes will be needed, right? So in GraphQL, it is very easy. No server change needs. So that very easy for getting the comparison objects in GraphQL. To do that, you can simply copy and paste it here. Nothing but we are calling two times search brand in our single query. Okay, this means nothing but it will execute our resolver method two times. Okay, but final output will be written in single response only with the two result set. Okay, so there is one drawback as well here because it will hit two times resolver. Two times hitting resolver means two times hitting table. Okay, but that's the obvious nature of this implementation. There is one more concept also for this comparison objects with single database query uh, to make the database query single only. So that concept is like data loaders. Okay, if I have already created a video on data loader, you can check if you want. Okay, for simple queries, it won't affect that much DB also. If it is really big data, you need to use the data loaders when you are using the comparison query is nothing but calling uh, resolver two times, not two times only, you can call here n number of times, n number of result set will be available in the response. Okay, so here we will do, here we need to give aliases names so that it will be very easy while returning the response. So I can say like gadget 1. Here I will give an alias name like gadget 2. Here I can't use my brand here directly because then Samsung will be executed two times. There is no difference. Our requirement will fail. So we need to create one more root variable and create like my brand 2, and I will create like 1 plus. So copy this my brand and here add one more GraphQL variable like this, and it should be prefixed with a dollar and it type as well string. Okay, and change it to my brand. Okay, now first query uses my brand, second query uses variable my brand too, and That's it. Do we need to change anything? Let's test it. Hmm. Okay. Here your results are there. Let me jumble this one. You can understand more easily. Because second search OnePlus having only one record that is available in the down. Let me change it to top. Samsung. See, gadgets one filtering OnePlus records. See, OnePlus record. Gadget two array filtering Samsung records. See, all Samsung records. See, it is nicely returning two result sets based on our request. So this much simple comparison response can be obtained from the GraphQL endpoint. Okay, here one drawback we can observe. Drawback means nothing but if you observe here properties, they are duplicated, right? See, they are duplicate because those are the properties we need to require from the API. But if something like if our table is like 50 or 100 columns and calling them two times will be most tedious, right? So to fix this or as an enhancement for this process, GraphQL provides one concept like fragments. Okay, to implement fragments, it is very simple. You need to use the auto intelligence available from the banana cake pop. These are default keywords in GraphQL, so it is automatically showing fragment. Okay, and I need to specify a name for it. I will specify like props. Any name you can specify and on. So these properties are of which type? Gadget type. This gadgets type, right? So we need to define that type. Okay, and open and copy all these properties here. Paste it here. Now in the queries, I can simply use the name of the fragment with the three dots prefix props. You can remove this and triple dots and props. Sorry, props. Okay, let's try and run the execute the query. See, it is executing. Here it is refreshing arrows. So see how much simple now my query is. If my table is 100 number of columns also, I can create frame the query with those properties. Single time is enough using the fragment. So that is the use of the fragments when we have a this type of comparison queries. Okay? That is so these concepts are like a client side only. No need changes in server side. Okay. So let just practice them. Once you get familiar, you can understand more easily. So that's all about the aliases and the fragmentation in the queries. So these concepts are enough for about the query type. And next I will jump to creating the mutation class and I will save one record. Then we will close this session because that gives full our idea. So with this idea, you can create an application with the GraphQL endpoint as well. There are more enhancements or topics you can search or Google it for a more in-depth concepts. But these basic concepts are enough, okay, more than enough to develop any enterprise application as well. So our target is to create the mutations, right? So let's go to resolver folder. Here add mutation dot resolver dot cs public class. I will create like mutation resolver. So this is my mutation class, we can say, with GraphQL HTML technology. Now let's create one resolver or a method that going to save our data into the database. So for that, what I will do, public, and I want to return the saved object as well. Gadgets. Save is my resolver name. Let's import gadgets namespace and inject our database context with service attribute. My old baby context. So here it will have a input parameter. So saving means object, right? So I will use gadgets class itself as a type of my payload model. Okay. So what I will do, context dot gadgets dot add the new data from the client side, and context dot save changes, and simply return the saved object. So how we will know the object is saved? Once the object is saved, automatically primary key value will be populated. Based on that, we can understand it is a new record. So this is our resolver. That's it. Nothing more we needed. Okay. But if you recall in query, to make our query resolver as a query type, it is registered in startup. Similarly, to make our mutation resolver as a mutation type, we need to register in our startup. For that, go to startup. Here we will have one more extension method like add mutation type. Here I can specify that mutation resolver. Copy name. Okay. So that's it. Now it will be generated as a mutation type in the schema. Okay. So let's write our analyze how automatic schema will generate for mutation. So for that, let's go to our notepad. So it is mutation type, it will generate, right? So type will be mutation, and it have one resolver method. What is that resolver method? Save. So add that method, and it should be Pascal casing, so small s. And here it will have input parameter and output also. Output what? Output is normal gadgets only. So I can say it will generate like this. Okay. But input model will be slightly different. Okay. Why it is slightly different means while generating, what it will do means what type here it is using. We are using return type and input return type this one and input type this one, same types, nothing but gadget class. So but in GraphQL you can specify, if you want to specify your gadgets model, another DTO model, any data transfer object model, you can create and use it. But I am directly using table class only. Okay, no issues there. Okay, but uh, in GraphQL, while generating schema for a mutation resolver, it will generate in such a way for input or payload type object. How it will generate means then it will append the uh, it will append input string to the class name of the C# class name defined. So what I means here it is gadgets, right? Copy that. It will define the type name like input payload type name like gadgets input. Just it will add the input string to the class name while generating the type of my model. So my input payload is what model. This will be same only. It won't change. So only change is the type for this model will be created as gadgets input. Okay. That means it will create one more type like this. It will create. Okay. So this is how schema will be generated. Okay, but in C# both classes same, but it's like a convention of the GraphQL while generating the schema. Why I am stressing like this means while what I can say, while framing the mutation query, we should use like this only. Okay, that's why I am stressing on this payload types. Okay, now we have set up everything. Our mutation also now good. We can frame the query. So for that, what I will do, we'll clear them off. So mutation, right? You can say mutation. And what is my method name? Method name is save. Okay, save. So smallest Pascal casing. And what is the input variable name? Input variable name is model. Okay. Since here also dynamic data, right? We need to use the variable. Variables are nothing but GraphQL variables. Okay, so GraphQL variables, we know that. So let's define a variable. I can define variable name, anything like my new gadget. This is my variable name. So this should be root. Inside of this, we will have all the properties, our gadgets to save. So what are all the properties? Those all properties are nothing but gadgets, right? What are their properties? ID and everything like that, right? These properties I need to send as payload. So I can say copy from here ID as my payload property. So I already know names. I will directly typing here, but those should be matched with this property names. Okay. ID and ID I no need because I am creating new record, right? So what are the remaining product name, brand, cost type? So product name, see camel case I am using. Product name and product name I will create like Samsung new mobile. Okay. And a brand Pascal casing and a Samsung brand. So these are all the user data. So all the user data will be changed to the my variable name. Okay. And the brand I have already created like type. I can say mobile and its cost some random number. Okay, that is my payload from the user. So let's define our GraphQL variable with a dollar sign and my new gadget is my dollar sign. So what is this type? So this is nothing but payload we are passing variable name variable name will be passed here, right? So gadgets, but GraphQL what it will define gadgets type input gadgets input. So I need to specify this as a type to my variable. Okay, so this is nothing but this type. So this is nothing but internally it will have fields like this only, all this schema will generate like this. It won't have ID, right? So it won't take. Okay, that's how it will work. And we know that for model we need to assign the payload. To assign the payload, we need to assign GraphQL variable. And we finally it is returning gadgets type, right? So we can simply I want to fetch the ID so that I can confirm that our record has been successfully saved. Okay, so now let's run. See, I got ID. My record is successfully saved. So this is how we need to frame the mutation type request to save or update our data into the database. Okay, and think that's all about the basic requirement to getting started with the GraphQL API with the code first approach. Okay, sorry, pure code first approach. Quite bit confusing, but remember there are two approaches: code first and pure code first approach. This entire video is pure code first approach. Okay, so I hope this video gives some useful information to you all. If you like my video, please do subscribe to my channel. I am going to share more content in near future. So we will meet you again with the new videos. Until then, signing off.